Welcome to JEE Prep Hub's Premium One-Shot series. Today, we are going to master the Class 11 AHSEC Alternative English prose lesson, The Suitor and Papa by Anton Chekhov. This is not a rushed summary. In this class, we will understand the author, the title, the complete plot, every important character, the humor and irony, the difficult words and expressions, the textbook summary, and every comprehension question printed with the lesson. We will also practice probable examination questions and learn how to write answers according to their expected length. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to do three things. First, retell the story in the correct sequence without confusing any incident. Second, explain why Pyotr is desperate to escape and why Kondrashkin keeps excusing him. Third, write accurate one-word, short, brief, and analytical answers with the correct keywords. Keep your textbook and a notebook ready. Whenever the screen shows think, pause the lecture for a few seconds and attempt the answer yourself. Then, compare your response with the model answer. Remember, an examination answer is not only about knowing the story. It is also about selecting the exact detail and expressing it clearly. Our central question for the lesson is simple. What happens when one person wants desperately to escape marriage while another person is desperate to arrange it? Chekhov turns this ordinary social situation into a comedy of pressure, excuses, and self-interest. Let us begin. Anton Chekhov was a Russian playwright and short story writer who lived from 1860 to 1904. The textbook introduces him as an important figure in the development of the modern short story in Europe. His stories often appear simple on the surface, but beneath the simple incident, we find complicated human psychology. People say one thing, think another thing, and behave in a third way. Chekhov notices this gap between what people claim and what they actually do. The author note in your text refers to several works, including The Bet, The Lady with the Dog, The Death of Government Clerk, Ward Number 6, The Duel, and The Orator. You do not need to memorize a long biography for the examination. The high-yield facts are these. Chekhov was Russian, he was a playwright and short story writer, he helped the modern short story grow, and he portrayed complicated human behavior with humor and contradiction. Now observe the method used in this lesson. Chekhov does not give us a long moral lecture against social pressure. Instead, he presents a conversation. Pyotr keeps inventing more and more shocking excuses. Kondrashkin keeps finding a way to excuse every one of them. The comedy grows because the reader understands the truth before Kondrashkin accepts it. Pyotr is not a criminal or a madman. He simply does not want to marry Nastya. This is an example of comic escalation. The excuse begins with a respectable difference in views. Then Pyotr says he is poor. Next, he calls himself a drunkard. Then he adds taking bribes, embezzlement, forgery, and the identity of a runaway convict. Finally, he claims insanity. Each step is more extreme than the previous step, but the father's determination to arrange a marriage is even more extreme. That reversal is the engine of the humor. Another important feature is irony. The situation is ironic because hospitality, which normally suggests kindness, becomes a trap. Kondrashkin's cordial hospitality seems generous, but he expects Pyotr to become a son-in-law. His welcome is not entirely selfless. Similarly, Pyotr presents himself as morally terrible in order to escape responsibility, but we can see that he is mainly trying to protect his freedom and comfort. Let us understand the title. The Suitor and Papa identifies the two forces at the center of the story. A suitor is a man who seeks or is expected to seek marriage with a woman. Here, Pyotr Petrovich Milkin is treated as a suitor although he does not want to become one. Papa refers to court counselor Kondrashkin, the father who is eager to arrange a daughter's marriage. The title is comic because the supposed suitor and the enthusiastic father do not share the same intention. The central characters are Pyotr Petrovich Milkin, court counselor Kondrashkin, Nastya Kondrashkina, and Dr Fituyev. Pyotr is the young man who has spent the summer visiting the Kondrashkin household, eating, drinking, walking, and talking with the daughters. He has unintentionally encouraged the family's hopes. Nastya is the daughter associated with Pyotr's visits, although the story is more interested in the father's pressure and Pyotr's escape than in Nastya's own voice. Kondrashkin is Nastya's father. He has 7 daughters, and his desire to get at least one of them married shapes his entire reaction.
He is persistent, self-centered, practical in a narrow sense, and comic because he treats even serious confessions as small obstacles. Dr. Fituyev appears near the end. Pyotr asks him for a certificate saying that he is insane. The doctor refuses and gives the story its final joke. A man who does not want to get married is not mad, he is sane. The doctor becomes the voice of common sense. The genre is a humorous short story, and the dominant mood is comic dialogue. Most of the plot moves through speech rather than action. That is why words such as said, thought, asked, and continued aloud matter. Chekhov lets us compare Pyotr's private thoughts with his public explanations. We see that he is frightened and desperate while he speaks politely and invents new arguments. The setting is a summer social environment in and around the
The setting is a summer social environment in and around the Kondrashkin household. The summer ball, walks, shared meals, flowers, and visits create the appearance of courtship. This is important. Pyotr has not formally proposed, but his behavior looks like courtship to the family. The misunderstanding is therefore not completely baseless, although Kondrashkin's determination becomes excessive. The story begins at a summer ball. One of Pyotr's friends tells him, "You're getting married, I hear." The friend asks when Pyotr is going to throw his stag party. A stag party is a celebration for a man before his wedding, attended by male friends only. This opening immediately tells us that the rumor has become socially accepted. Pyotr is not being asked whether he has proposed. He is being asked when the celebration will take place. Pyotr blushes and asks where the friend heard that he was getting married. The friend answers that everybody is saying so. The friend lists the evidence. Pyotr spends whole days at the Kondrashkin house. He dines there, he has supper there, he sings ballads, he goes for walks with Nastya, except when Nastya Kondrashkina goes for walks with the only one who takes bunches of flowers to her. The friend jokingly concludes that everybody can see what is happening. This conversation is important because it establishes Pyotr's unintended role. He may have thought that he was simply enjoying social company, but his repeated visits have created a pattern. In society, patterns are often interpreted as intentions. The friend's teasing is light, but Pyotr takes it seriously because he knows that Kondrashkin is already encouraging the hope. Pyotr thinks that the rumors are like something that will be hatched and become a menace. His mind is not focused on love or Nastya. It is focused on escape. He sees the approaching marriage as an unwanted responsibility and decides to visit Kondrashkin and say goodbye. The next day, Pyotr goes to court counselor Kondrashkin's study. Kondrashkin greets him warmly. He asks how they are getting on and jokes about Nastya. The father's tone is friendly, but it makes Pyotr uncomfortable. Pyotr tries to explain that he has come to discuss an important matter. He says he has something on his mind and that he is leaving tomorrow. Notice his indirectness. He does not immediately say, "Please stop expecting me to marry Nastya." He begins with a goodbye and thanks the family for its cordial hospitality. This politeness is partly genuine and partly strategic. He wants to leave without insulting the family, but he also wants to shut down the marriage expectation. Kondrashkin, however, understands the situation differently. He says Pyotr has been coming all summer, eating, drinking, talking to the girls, and suddenly announces that he is leaving. Kondrashkin argues that Pyotr's behavior clearly suggested a proposal. He says Pyotr dined with the girls, walked with Nastya in the evenings, and could not pretend that this meant nothing. In his view, only a suitor behaves in that manner and then refuses to acknowledge the meaning. This is the first major conflict. It is not yet a conflict about crime, poverty, or insanity. It is a conflict about interpretation. Pyotr says his actions did not contain a promise. Kondrashkin says the actions were enough to create an expectation.
In an exam, if you are asked why Pyotr was disturbed by the rumors, write that his frequent visits had unintentionally encouraged the family to believe that he intended to marry Nastya, and he feared being trapped by that expectation. At this point, the story has created a comic trap. Pyotr has come to end the matter with ordinary politeness, but Kondrashkin forces him to explain himself. That pressure makes Pyotr search for a stronger excuse. Pyotr next says that Nastya is a very nice young lady and that he respects her. He also says he could not wish for a better wife. But he adds that they do not share the same convictions and views. This is a respectable and reasonable objection. A person may be good, yet still not be a suitable life partner if both people hold very different opinions and ideas. Kondrashkin immediately rejects the argument. He says in effect that a husband and wife do not need to have identical views. He compares marriage to a road whose rough edges are rubbed off through use. He even makes a joke about youth, green and salad days, meaning the inexperienced and idealistic period of youth. His point is that people change after marriage and gradually adjust to each other. This response shows Kondrashkin's practical but self-centered attitude. He does not ask whether Nastya agrees with Pyotr or whether the two young people understand each other. His focus is simply on removing the objection. For him, every problem can be solved if the marriage takes place. Pyotr then says that he is unworthy of Anastasia Kirillovna. This is another polite way of withdrawing, but Kondrashkin flatly rejects it, calling Pyotr a wonderful young man. He refuses to accept Pyotr's low opinion of himself because it threatens his plan. Pyotr escalates and says that he is poor. Kondrashkin answers that Pyotr draws a salary, so there is no real problem. Again, the father takes a serious objection and reduces it to a minor practical matter. Then Pyotr makes the confession that his friend finds unbelievable. He says he is a drunkard and goes on drinking bouts. A drinking bout is a period of intensive drinking. Pyotr calls it a hereditary vice, meaning a bad quality or wrong tendency passed from parents to children. He hopes this admission will make him appear completely unsuitable. Kondrashkin refuses to believe him. He says he has never seen Pyotr drunk. This response is important. He
refuses to believe him. He says he has never seen Pyotr drunk. This response is important. Kondrashkin trusts his own observations more than Pyotr's confession. If he has not personally witnessed the drinking, he treats it as an exaggeration. From Pyotr's point of view, this is terrible. Even a self-declared vice is not enough to end the proposal. Let us pause and identify the comic pattern. Pyotr gives a reason. Kondrashkin answers with reassurance. Pyotr gives a worse reason. Kondrashkin answers with stronger reassurance. The more Pyotr tries to make himself unacceptable, the more determined Kondrashkin becomes. This section also develops the theme of social pressure. Marriage is presented not as a private decision between two individuals, but as a matter involving friends, family, reputation, and expectation. Pyotr cannot simply say no and walk away, because everyone around him has already created a story about his future. For short answers, remember these exact relationships. Pyotr said his convictions and views differed from Nastya's. Kondrashkin replied that people's rough edges are rubbed off after marriage and that they need not share exactly the same views. Pyotr called himself poor, but Kondrashkin said he drew a salary. Pyotr called himself a drunkard with a hereditary vice, but Kondrashkin dismissed the claim because he had never seen Pyotr drunk. Because the ordinary arguments have failed, Pyotr moves from personal weaknesses to criminal acts.
He says, "Not only am I prone to drinking bouts," and then adds that he takes bribes. A bribe is an improper payment given to influence a person or secure an unfair advantage. Pyotr is now deliberately presenting himself as corrupt. Kondrashkin reacts with surprise, but his tone still contains a laugh. Pyotr then says he has not the right to get married until he learns the outcome of his feat. He has been hiding the truth, but now he says he is on trial for embezzlement. Embezzlement means the theft or misuse of money entrusted to one's care. Kondrashkin is dumbfounded. This word means extremely surprised or astonished. He asks whether Pyotr embezzled a great deal. Pyotr gives the exact amount, 144,000. The number is deliberately shocking. It makes the scene more absurd because Kondrashkin's first concern is not morality, it is the likely punishment. Kondrashkin says the case smells of Siberia. In the context of this story, Siberia represents a Siberian jail or severe punishment. He briefly recognizes the seriousness of the crime, but then he immediately turns back to marriage. He says that Nastya loves Pyotr and could follow him there. He suggests that life in Siberia may be better than where they are. He even says he would go there himself if it were not for his family. This is one of the most important comic moments in the story. Kondrashkin is willing to accept the possibility of prison because he is so eager to marry off one of his daughters. The father's social goal has become larger than ordinary judgment. Pyotr realizes that he is dealing with a stubborn person. The narration describes Kondrashkin's face and emotional agitation. Pyotr thinks of him as a stubborn brute who is willing to marry his daughter off even to the devil as long as the daughter leaves the house. This thought reveals Pyotr's growing desperation and his judgment of the father's selfishness. Still, Kondrashkin does not surrender. Pyotr adds that he is not only facing embezzlement charges but also forgery. Forgery means making a false or counterfeit document to deceive people. Kondrashkin says that the penalty is the same. To him, adding another serious crime does not change the practical result. The response is absurdly calm compared with the confession. This part is useful for a long answer about Kondrashkin's character. He is not simply optimistic. He is determined to the point of blindness. His responses show that he treats his daughter's marriage as a solution to the family's burden. He does not pause to consider Nastya's safety, Pyotr's character, or the law. He thinks only of removing one daughter from his household. For the examination, do not confuse the crimes. Pyotr says he takes bribes, is on trial for embezzlement involving 144,000 and is also involved in forgery. When Kondrashkin imagines Siberia, he nevertheless says Nastya might follow Pyotr there. The reason for his reaction is his desire to get a daughter married and his refusal to accept Pyotr's excuses. The story now reaches a point at which Pyotr's speech is almost a competition. He is trying to produce a confession so shocking that even a marriage-minded father will reject him. But Kondrashkin's self-interest has made him unusually resistant to truth.
Pyotr finally announces the horrible secret. He says he is a runaway convict. A runaway convict is a person who has escaped while serving a prison sentence for a crime. This statement is more dangerous than the earlier claims because it suggests that Pyotr is not merely awaiting trial. He has escaped from punishment and is living under a false identity. Kondrashkin recoils. The narration describes him as frightened and horrified. He stands speechless and motionless, staring at Pyotr. Then he collapses into an armchair and groans. For the first time, Pyotr has reached a confession that appears to break through the father's confidence. Kondrashkin cries that he never expected such a snake to be in his bosom. This image means that he feels he has welcomed a dangerous person into his home. He tells Pyotr to go away and says he does not want to see him again. Pyotr picks up his hat and starts toward the door, rejoicing in his victory. He believes that the problem is solved. But Chekhov immediately reverses the situation. Kondrashkin calls him back and asks why he has not been arrested yet. Pyotr replies that he is living under an alias. An alias is a false or assumed name or identity. This answer should make Kondrashkin even more determined to reject him. Instead, the father changes his mind once more. He says that perhaps Pyotr will die and no one will ever know who he really is. Then he offers an unexpected moral judgment. Pyotr is now an honest man because he has repented of his past. This is a spectacular example of comic rationalization. Kondrashkin changes a criminal past into proof of honesty simply because Pyotr has admitted it and because the marriage plan is still possible. The father's logic is not based on justice, it is based on convenience. Pyotr breaks out into a sweat. He understands that deception has not solved the problem. The narration says that there is no use taking the deception further than the runaway convict, and only one thing remains: to flee ignominiously, meaning shamefully or disgracefully, without giving any reason. At the door, however, Pyotr has a thought. He says he is mad and that marriage is forbidden to the mad and insane. He hopes this last excuse will be accepted because it removes him from the category of an eligible husband. Kondrashkin does not believe him. Pyotr explains that some madmen are crazy only for certain spells or certain periods, but are otherwise no different from ordinary people. Kondrashkin tells him to save his breath. This expression means that he should stop speaking because his advice or explanation will have no effect. The madness plan fails because Kondrashkin treats it as another trick. Pyotr now needs external proof. He decides to adopt Hamlet's device, an allusion to Shakespeare's Hamlet, in which Hamlet pretends to be mad in order to avoid detection while planning revenge. Pyotr's purpose is very different. He pretends to be mad to avoid an unwanted marriage. Pyotr says he will bring a certificate from a doctor and leaves. 5 minutes later, he is calling on his friend Dr Fituyev. The doctor has just had a tiff with his wife, so the scene begins with another small domestic disagreement. A tiff is an argument or war of words. Pyotr asks the doctor for a favor. He says that people are trying to get him hitched at all costs. Get hitched means get married. To avoid this calamity or disaster, he has decided to feign insanity. To feign means to pretend. He asks the doctor to use Hamlet's device and certify him as insane. The doctor asks whether Pyotr really does not want to get married. Pyotr answers, not for all the tea in China. This idiom means not at any cost or never. It is an emphatic refusal. The doctor then refuses to provide the certificate. He tells Pyotr that anyone who does not want to get married is not crazy. On the contrary, he is wise. He says that Pyotr ever wants to get married, then the doctor will know that Pyotr has become stark, staring mad.
This is the final joke and the final judgment. Pyotr's plan fails because the doctor reverses his assumption. In the comic world of the story, refusing marriage is evidence of sanity, while desiring marriage after such a disastrous situation would be evidence of madness. The ending also gives us the title's deepest irony. The suitor is not acting like a willing suitor at all. He is trying every possible method to escape the role. Papa is not acting like a cautious father protecting his daughter. He is ready to accept almost anything if a marriage can be arranged. The normal roles have been distorted. What does Pyotr finally achieve? The story does not give a clear legal or social resolution. We do not learn whether he escapes permanently. That uncertainty is part of the comedy. He has tried politeness, incompatibility, poverty, drinking, bribery, embezzlement, forgery, the identity of a runaway convict, and madness. Each strategy fails because Kondrashkin's desire is stronger than the evidence against Pyotr. The final irony is bitter as well as funny. Kondrashkin's cordial hospitality can be seen as a mask for self-centeredness. He appears warm and generous, but he is mainly interested in marrying off one of his 7 daughters. Pyotr, meanwhile, is also self-centered because he wants to avoid the consequences of his own behavior. He has encouraged the family's hopes through repeated visits, yet he wants to escape without accepting responsibility for the misunderstanding. If an examination question asks about the ending, write that the doctor's refusal supplies the final comic twist. Pyotr fails to prove his insanity because the doctor considers refusal to marry a sign of sanity. The ending also exposes the absurdity of social pressure and the self-centered motives behind Kondrashkin's hospitality. Let us now retell the entire story in 5 stages. This is the fastest way to secure the sequence in your memory. Stage 1. The mistaken suitor. At a summer ball, Pyotr learns that his friends and the wider social circle believe he is getting married. His visits to the Kondrashkin household, his meals with the family, his walks with Nastya, and his flowers have created this belief. Stage 2. The attempted goodbye. Pyotr visits court counselor Kondrashkin to say goodbye and explain that he is leaving. Kondrashkin confronts him and says his behavior clearly suggested courtship. Pyotr replies that he and Nastya do not share the same convictions and views. Stage 3. The excuse ladder. Kondrashkin dismisses the difference in views. Pyotr then claims that he is unworthy, poor, a drunkard, and a person with a hereditary vice. Kondrashkin answers each objection as if it were minor. Stage 4. The criminal confessions. Pyotr says he takes bribes, is on trial for embezzlement of 1,44,000, is involved in forgery, and is a runaway convict. Kondrashkin briefly becomes frightened but still discovers a reason why Nastya could marry him. He even interprets Pyotr's confession and repentance as signs of honesty. Stage 5. Madness and the doctor's joke. Pyotr claims to be mad and decides to obtain a medical certificate using Hamlet's device. Dr Fituyev refuses, saying that a man who does not want to marry is sane. The story ends with comic uncertainty and bitter irony. The plot can also be described as a battle between escape and entrapment. Pyotr escalates his excuses to escape the marriage. Kondrashkin escalates his rationalizations to keep the possibility of marriage alive. The conversation becomes a game. This is why the final long answer question asks who has won the game. A strong answer can say that Pyotr appears to win each small round because he shocks Kondrashkin. But Kondrashkin wins the larger game because he repeatedly defeats Pyotr's excuses. On the other hand, the doctor's final remark leaves Pyotr's situation unresolved, so the story ends with comic uncertainty rather than a complete victory. Before we move to the characters and themes, remember the author's central technique. The story does not need a complicated plot. A single conversation is enough when each response increases the pressure and exposes character.
Let us examine the 2 central characters. Pyotr Petrovich Milkin is intelligent, humorous, frightened, and desperate. He realizes that the marriage rumor is becoming a menace. He tries to resolve the situation politely, but he does not speak directly enough at first. As pressure increases, he invents increasingly serious defects.
His imagination is comic, but his behavior is also self-centered. He has enjoyed the Kondrashkin family's hospitality all summer, yet he wants to leave without facing the consequences of the impression he has created. His final attempt to feign insanity shows both resourcefulness and desperation. Court Counselor Kondrashkin is persistent, optimistic in an absurd way, and deeply self-centered. His 7 daughters and his desire to marry at least one of them appear to be the motive behind his conduct. Every confession by Pyotr is processed according to one question: can this man still marry Nastya? He first argues about differences in views, then dismisses poverty, drinking, bribery, embezzlement, forgery, and even the status of a runaway convict. His reactions reveal that his hospitality is not purely generous. It is connected with a personal objective. Nastya remains mostly offstage, but her presence is important. She is the daughter whose supposed marriage drives the conversation. Chekhov's decision not to give her a major speaking role keeps the focus on the social machinery around marriage rather than on romantic love. Dr. Fituyev represents ordinary reasoning. His refusal to issue a false certificate gives the ending its punchline. He sees that Pyotr is not mentally ill. He is simply unwilling to marry. The doctor's statement turns the society's assumption upside down. The first major theme is social pressure in marriage. Pyotr's personal choice is treated as public property. His friends make arrangements in their imagination, and Kondrashkin treats his visits as a commitment. The story suggests that social expectations can become oppressive when they ignore individual consent. The second theme is self-interest disguised as hospitality. Kondrashkin welcomes Pyotr warmly, but his hospitality is linked to the hope of marrying off a daughter. The story asks us to examine whether apparently kind behavior is always selfless. The third theme is the gap between appearance and reality. Pyotr looks like a suitor but does not feel like one. Kondrashkin looks like a concerned father but acts like a man trying to remove a burden. The doctor appears only briefly but sees the reality more clearly than both men. The humor is created by exaggeration, repetition, contrast, and reversal. Repetition occurs when Pyotr offers a new objection and Kondrashkin dismisses it. Contrast exists between the seriousness of the crimes and the father's light response. Reversal comes at the end when the doctor treats refusal to marry as sanity. For the title, write that it is appropriate because the entire action centers on the supposed suitor, Pyotr, and the father Kondrashkin, who wants to arrange the marriage. It is also ironic because Pyotr is trying to escape the role of suitor while Papa refuses to give up the idea. This section is important for analytical questions. If asked about Kondrashkin, begin with persistent and self-centered. Support those qualities with his responses to Pyotr's different views, poverty, drinking, bribery, and crimes. If asked about the title, explain both the literal reference to the two central figures and the irony created by their opposite intentions.
This section is designed for objective questions, vocabulary questions, and better comprehension answers. Listen carefully and repeat the meanings. A stag party is a celebration for a man before his wedding, attended by male friends only. Ballads are folk compositions in short stanzas adapted for singing. In the story, The word refers to romantic songs. Menaces means troublemakers or nuisances. A blockhead is a stupid fellow. A jiffy means a very short time or a second. To pop over means to pay a visit. The Gusevs may refer to a locality in Russia and also function as a Russian surname. Flustered means confused, agitated, or disturbed. If someone is wet behind the ears, that person is immature or inexperienced. Cordial hospitality means a warm and generous reception. If someone is going purple in the face, that person is getting very angry. Convictions and views means opinions and ideas. Green and salad days refers to the youthful days of inexperience and idealism. Rough edges in this story refers to uncompromising situations or attitudes. Drinking bouts are periods of intensive drinking. A hereditary vice is a bad quality or wrong tendency passed from parents to children. Embezzlement means the theft or misappropriation of funds placed in one's care or fraudulent practices. Dumbfounded means extremely surprised or astonished. If a case smells of Siberia, it appears likely to lead to a Siberian jail. A stubborn brute is an inflexible and willful fellow. Forgery means making a fake or counterfeit document to cheat people. Appalled means shocked or horrified. A runaway convict is an escaped person who is serving a prison sentence for a crime. An alias is a false or assumed name or identity. Ignominiously means shamefully or disgracefully. Crazy for certain spells means mentally unsound for a certain period of time. Save your breath means stop advising or explaining when it has no effect. To snatch up means to grasp something quickly. A tiff is an argument or war of words. To get hitched means to get married. A calamity is a disaster. To feign insanity means to pretend to be mad. Hamlet's device means pretending to be mad in order to escape an undesired situation. In Shakespeare's Hamlet, Hamlet pretends to be mad to avoid being detected while planning revenge on King Claudius, his uncle, who killed his father. Not for all the tea in China means not at any cost or never. It is an emphatic refusal. A useful way to remember the vocabulary is to group it. Social words are stag party, cordial hospitality, get hitched, and tiff. Emotional words are flustered, dumbfounded, appalled, and going purple in the face. Legal and criminal words are embezzlement, forgery, runaway convict, and alias. Escape words are save your breath, feign insanity, Hamlet's device, and not for all the tea in China. Do not confuse embezzlement with forgery. Embezzlement concerns the misuse or theft of entrusted money. Forgery concerns making a false document. Do not confuse alias with a nickname. An alias is an assumed identity, often used to conceal who a person really is. Do not confuse cordial with formal. Cordial means warm and friendly. Learn the expression in context, not in isolation. In this story, feign insanity is Pyotr's final escape plan, while the doctor's response turns the idiom into the story's most memorable comic joke.
We will now answer the textbook questions. Whenever the screen shows think, pause the lecture for a few seconds and attempt the answer yourself. Then, compare your response with the model answer. Section 1. Answer in one or two words. Question 1. Who is the suitor in the story? The answer is Pyotr Petrovich Milkin, or simply Pyotr Milkin. Question 2. Who asked for a stag party? The answer is Pyotr's friend. The friend asked when Pyotr was going to throw his stag party. Question 3. How many daughters did Kondrashkin have? The answer is 7 daughters. Question 4. What hereditary vice did Pyotr refer to as an excuse to avoid getting married? The answer is drinking. More fully, he claimed that he was a drunkard and had a hereditary vice. Question 5. For which crime did Pyotr say that he was on trial? The answer is embezzlement. Question 6. What horrible secret did Pyotr contrive to get rid of the Kondrashkin family? The answer is that he was a runaway convict. Question 7. Why did Pyotr meet his friend Dr Fituyev? The answer is to get a certificate of insanity or to be certified insane. These answers are factual. Keep them exact and concise. Now, section 2. Answer in a few words. Question 1. Why did Pyotr's friends ask for a stag party? The model answer is because they believed Pyotr was going to marry Nastya. His repeated visits, meals, walks, and flowers had made the marriage seem certain to them. Question 2. How did Kondrashkin counter Pyotr's argument that his convictions and views were different from those of Nastya? The model answer is he said that married people gradually adjust to one another and that their rough edges are rubbed off with time. He did not consider different views a serious barrier to marriage. Question 3. Why did Pyotr say that he was unworthy of Nastya? How did Kondrashkin react to it? The model answer is Pyotr wanted to give another reason for refusing the marriage. Kondrashkin rejected the claim and called Pyotr a wonderful young man. Question 4. How did Kondrashkin dismiss Pyotr's claim that he was guilty of taking bribes? The model answer is he treated it lightly and continued to defend Pyotr, as if the confession were not enough to prevent the marriage. His joking tone shows that his marriage plan is stronger than his moral judgment. Question 5. Why did Kondrashkin fear that Pyotr might be sent to Siberia? How did he react to Pyotr's confession of these crimes and why? The model answer is he feared Siberia because Pyotr confessed to embezzlement and forgery, serious crimes that could bring severe punishment. Yet he still said that Nastya could follow Pyotr there because he was determined to get her married. Question 6. Why did Kondrashkin call Pyotr dishonest? The answer is because Pyotr had hidden the truth and had deceived the family about his identity and past. The scene also shows that Kondrashkin thinks Pyotr has been evading the issue of marriage. Question 7. Why did Dr. Fituyev refuse to give Pyotr the certificate he wanted? The model answer is the doctor refused because Pyotr was not mad. He believed that a man who did not want to marry was sane, and that wanting to marry in such circumstances would be madness. Notice the answer length. These are not essay questions.
Do not write a full plot summary for a few word question. Give the exact incident, and where the question asks why, add one clear reason. This is how you stay accurate and avoid losing marks through irrelevant writing.
Now, suitable analytical answers. Question 1. Describe the character of Kondrashkin in the light of his responses and reactions when Pyotr visits his place to say goodbye. Model answer. Kondrashkin is persistent, self-centered, and comic in his determination to arrange a marriage. When Pyotr visits to say goodbye, Kondrashkin interprets his summer visits as evidence of courtship and refuses to accept Pyotr's explanation. He dismisses the difference in convictions and views by saying that married people are just to one another. He also rejects Pyotr's claims of poverty and drinking. When Pyotr confesses to taking bribes, embezzlement, forgery, and being a runaway convict, Kondrashkin is shocked. But his desire to marry off a daughter makes him rationalize even these crimes. He suggests that Nastya could follow Pyotr to Siberia, and later treats Pyotr's repentance as evidence of honesty. His reactions reveal that his cordial hospitality is connected with self-interest. He wants a marriage so badly that ordinary moral judgment becomes secondary. Through Kondrashkin, Chekhov satirizes social pressure and selfish motives hidden behind family concern. Question 2. Do you think Pyotr was more self-centered than Kondrashkin as revealed in the conversation between the two? Model answer. Pyotr and Kondrashkin are both self-centered, but their self-interest appears in different forms. Pyotr wants to protect his freedom and avoid the responsibility of marriage. He has enjoyed the Kondrashkin family's hospitality and has behaved in a way that encouraged their hopes, yet he tries to escape by inventing shocking excuses instead of facing the misunderstanding directly. Kondrashkin, on the other hand, is so eager to marry off one of his 7 daughters that he ignores morality, safety, and common sense.
He's ready to accept a drunkard, bribe taker, embezzler, forger, and runaway convict as a possible son in law. Therefore, Pyotr is evasive and self protective, but Kondrashkin appears more deeply self centered because he treats his daughter's marriage as a solution to his own burden and disregards the consequences for her. Question 3. Who do you think has won the game? Justify your answer. The answer is deliberately uncertain, which is part of the story's comedy. Pyotr wins some small rounds because he repeatedly shocks Kondrashkin and temporarily makes him believe that the marriage is impossible. However, Kondrashkin wins the larger argument because he defeats almost every excuse through persistence and rationalization. Pyotr's final plan also fails when Dr. Fituyev refuses to certify him insane. In another sense, neither man truly wins. Kondrashkin has not secured the marriage and Pyotr has not shown a definite escape. The doctor's final remark leaves the situation comic and unresolved. Thus, the story ends not with a clear victory but with the exposure of the absurdity of both men's self interest. Here are high value questions that may be framed from the chapter. Type A, very short factual questions. Who is Pyotr? Who is Nastya? How many daughters does Kondrashkin have? What is an alias? What is a stag party? What crime involved 144,000? What does get hitched mean? For these questions, answer directly and do not add irrelevant explanation. Type B, short explanatory questions. Why did Pyotr visit Kondrashkin? Why did Kondrashkin dismiss the difference in views? Why did Pyotr call himself a drunkard? Why did Kondrashkin mention Siberia? Why did Pyotr say he was a runaway convict? Why did Dr. Fituyev refuse the certificate? For these questions, write the incident plus the reason in 2 or 3 sentences. Type C, brief answer questions. Explain Pyotr's chain of excuses. Describe the role of social pressure. Explain Hamlet's device in the story. Describe the significance of the ending. These answers need a short paragraph with a clear sequence. Type D, analytical questions. Discuss Kondrashkin's character. Compare the self-interest of Pyotr and Kondrashkin. Explain the humor and irony. Discuss the suitability of the title. Decide who won the game. These answers need a thesis, textual evidence, and a concluding judgment.
Let us finish with the answer writing method. Marks are lost when an answer is too vague, too long, or missing the exact incident. Match your method to the question type. For 1 mark or 1 and 2 word questions, give the exact fact only. Name the person, term, crime, number, or action. Do not add a full story summary. For a question such as, for which crime was Pyotr on trial? The answer is simply embezzlement. For few word questions, state the incident and its reason. Answer the question directly, then add the cause or effect in one precise sentence. For example, Dr. Fituyev refuses because Pyotr is not mad. The doctor considers refusal to marry a sign of sanity. For brief and long answers, make a judgment and prove it. Start with a quality or thesis, support it with 2 or 3 incidents, then conclude with Chekhov's irony. For example, Kondrashkin is persistent and self-centered because he excuses even Pyotr's crimes to keep the marriage possible. Before writing, underline the command word. Before finishing, check that every sentence answers the exact question, not merely the story in general. Final rapid revision. Anton Chekhov was a Russian playwright and short story writer from 1860 to 1904. Pyotr is the supposed suitor. Kondrashkin is Nastya's father, known as Papa, and he has 7 daughters. The rumor begins because Pyotr spends time at the family home, eats and drinks there, sings ballads, walks with Nastya, and brings flowers. Pyotr's excuses rise from different views to poverty, drinking, bribery, embezzlement, forgery, runaway convict, and madness. Kondrashkin keeps rationalizing because he wants to get a daughter married. Pyotr invokes Hamlet's device but fails. Dr. Fituyev supplies the final joke by calling refusal to marry a sign of sanity. The story is a comedy of social pressure, misinterpretation, and self-interest. If you can remember the sequence, rumour, goodbye, differences, poverty, drinking, crimes, convict, madness, doctor, you can reconstruct the complete story in the examination. If you can remember the framework, character quality, incident, interpretation, you can write a strong analytical answer. Thank you for learning with JEE Prep Hub. Revise the vocabulary once, write the textbook answers once without looking, and then practice one long answer in your own words. This is JEE Prep Hub's one-shot series. Learn, grow, succeed.